So it's recognizing that darkness or density is just consciousness under pressure. It is light, it's just got kind of crammed tight, right? And so when we open up that and discover what it is, the dawn comes, we get ahas, epiphany, we get freedom, we forgive ourselves and others. The light comes in just on its own.
For those of you who are seeing Teresa for the first time on Dialogues with Masters, it's worth mentioning that she provided some wonderful insights during our first dialogue together, mentioning things and diving deep into topics such as astral travel, astral entities, manifestation, and using self enhanced abilities responsibly, as well as the power of being in our heart centers, just to name a few. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend it. And Teresa, to get started, it's always lovely having you on. I wanted to ask you a question that I'll be asking our guests in this season in particular. And I would love to get your perspective on what is your current experience of consciousness and how has it evolved over the years?
Right. What a fabulous question. Currently, I am happy and healthy. That's my new set point, but it wasn't always that way. There was an evolution. For instance, quite some time ago, I was very attached to my stories, what I thought was happening, what was going on around me, and in particular, how I reacted to them. And I reacted to them out of fear. For instance, trying to control the narrative or other people, places, and things to match what I thought was my reality. And when I was largely unenlightened, I didn't realize there was anything wrong with it. I just thought, hey, I'm just sticking up for myself. But I was ignoring so much in my life when I was doing that, right? I wasn't happy. I wasn't healthy. I was wasting time, energy, and money chasing my tail full speed ahead or crashed. There was no consistency. There was no real connection with myself. So, how could there be a connection with our shared reality and those around me? And I was fortunate. We all tend to have something that tips us into this kind of pathway. And for me, it was a conversation with my daughter years ago like, we're not getting along very well. What can I do about it? And Stu, you don't ask the question unless you're prepared for the answer, right? And she answered, and she says, you have to become a totally different person. And so, okay, thank you for your honesty. So, after some contemplation, I figured, okay, there's something that I'm just not being authentic with. That means being in my heart. So that's when I dove in and started learning heart math techniques, right? So I was very fortunate where I started, where people tend to end up. So I started with the heart, and everything I've done has had that as a like a background thread that's been woven into everything that I do. So I started to turn into the heart's intuition, what's essential compared to what are distractions, right? Healing trauma. So coming from a lighter place. And the more I healed density, confusion, shadow personas, of, feeling unworthy or not good enough or unwanted or whatever the flavor of the month might have been, right? The more I showed up and was brave and went there and got the healing necessary, what happens is that creates more room for light to populate the area that was previously darkness and distortion. and I became lighter and clearer. I was actually finally be able to find me without the masks, right? Without that false stuff that I thought I had to show up as or to live or offer people, just so I can be liked, included, wanted, desirable, kind of people pleasing, you know? And maybe some people have something similar. I think some of these we probably do have a lot in common. And I clearly have no shame in that, right? Clearly that's totally fine. And all I did is I just loved what showed up. It didn't mean I liked what I always found in those moments, but I loved them. I loved them anyways, knowing they're a vital part of me that's been kind of pushed to the side or othered or living in denial or projections onto other people. And then I just started tuning into, well, what is unique and special about me? What are my gifts, my talents, right? Oddly enough, I can keep white clothes clean. Maybe super important. But hey, it's a superpower. I don't know. But so much more, of course, right? So much more started coming in. And then I just started to develop a really good foundation of safety and security within myself. I was able to get enough clarity where I could trust myself and who I am. And with that, so much freedom and expressing and realizing, those pithy statements like whatever anyone says about you is none of your business, or walking into a room, it used to be, oh, I hope they like me. Now it's a little different. This is overstating it for where I am now, but, walking into a room and I hope I like them. you know, things along that way. And so I was just open, willing to change, willing to grow, willing to show up for who I am. And as the years rolled by, with all those distortions leaving, the light of the divine was closer and closer and within reach. And it was like my personal will, my, little Teresa avatar wills and preferences slowly started to melt away, fusing with the divine will. And then even more light came in and more calm and ease and flow and equanimity. And that just continues on to this day, where truly I feel a sense of sweetness and so much of my life, even the challenging parts, there's still this sense of calm and ease and being poised and present, for myself, of course, first and foremost, but also for all my relations, right? Because all
Absolutely.
those buttons that were pushed or my triggers, they don't exist anymore, right?
That's beautiful and very empowering at the same time. Oftentimes, we gravitate towards the conceptual understanding, which is more brain oriented, but we forget just how powerful it is to deal in your heart center and to create that love. As you mentioned, I'm curious, how did you develop that love for all that you are? I think a lot of us get stuck on that mental plane. And although there are bits and pieces of inspiration that lead us towards our heart centers, that evolution that you described is something that is the challenge to continuously stay there. So how did you develop that love and continue to keep it?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And I think for everybody, they'll find their own way through, right? And, for me, for instance, like loving what shows up was recognizing I am still a work in progress. I don't have everything figured out yet. So I'm still figuring it out. And I learned that all the compassion and the gentleness and the kindness and the all that I was willing to share with those around me, it was time for me to share that with myself. And yeah, I'm getting angel bumps, when the nervous system recognizes a truth and everything gets in
Perfect.
your lane, the little, when the pili, like, anyways.
We're
So
going the right direction then.
yeah, we're
Perfect.
certainly going the right direction. It also helped to get some external validation just in the beginning, especially. Like, "You look light today," or, "Oh, there's a twinkle in your eye," like, "Are you dating?" Or, stuff like that, right? Like, just having other people recognize and mirror back to me the shifts that I was seeing, because you don't go out with friends and ramble on and on about, spiritual growth, right? That's, not
And I
so.
think what you mentioned is an aspect of manifestation as well, right? Is what you become essentially is what is mirrored back to you.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I just started, like I said, more compassionate, less judgmental of myself. So I started to do small little treats for myself, things that I did mindfully. Like, you know what? That was a big clearing, or I've got all these ahas, or a nightmare came last night that really focused me, maybe my next best steps for healing purposes. So when anything like that came up, I treated myself. And for everyone, it'll be something different, something you enjoy, like, I don't know, something very 3D, getting a pedicure, buying a bag of chips, right? Like, just spending time with your companion animal, just going to a beach and watching a sunrise or a sunset. And that started weaving in the oneness and the beauty that's all around. So I didn't have to wake up and, okay, I'm going to feel good today. What do I do to feel good today? It's just was a little more organic than that, not chasing the light, but just
Became a state of being.
it became a state of being. Yeah, what
Wow.
what else did I do? I wonder. Yes, I allowed the good in, because with density there's heart walls and there's a lot of fear. So as the fear layers started peeling away, when someone said something good to me, like, a compliment, or, oh, here's a big tip for you for your service, like, financial thing, I allowed myself to soak that in and to accept it and say thank you. Thank you for that, instead of, "Oh, well, this old dress," that kind of thing. So I just
Wow.
allowed the blessings to come and the gratitude from others, because those are presents. And before, I didn't realize when I turned down people's, offers to help or gifts or whatever, I was not doing them any favors, let alone myself. And another point too is, say if there was a growth curve, and, like, say, letting, a potential sweetheart know I was interested in them, not holding back, but sitting with it, and doing the work I needed to chip away at that stone of unworthy, or I'm no longer in my 20s, et cetera, right? And then showing up, taking the courage to do the things that before scared me, approach that event horizon of expanding into a new sense of me, right? And even if it didn't necessarily go how I would maybe choose it to go, that didn't matter. That wasn't why I was doing it, Stu. I was doing it to teach myself that I could show up for myself and ask for what I need.
That's wonderful, and I can imagine that with that clarity also comes the insight and the ability to really tap into one's intuition, which you had quite a bit of from the beginning, but also developed over the years due to all of this, wisdom that you acquired and the challenges that you overcame, particularly internally, as you just mentioned. And I'm just curious for our viewers just to get an understanding of the type of abilities that can be attained once one is in tune with their intuition.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question, because James von Prague, do I have it here, had a beautiful quote. Let's see. Our soul is psychic, And intuition is the soul's voice.
Wow.
Isn't that beautiful? Leo Tolstoy said
Wonderfully
something,
said.
along that lines, too, right? Everything we need, it's within. And it's just uncoupling to the attachments of our perceived limitations are, right? And showing
Absolutely.
up, taking a chance on ourselves, because as I kind of described before, I was kind of lost, overwhelmed, disempowered, not always making the best decisions, especially if there was pressure. Then I felt I needed to decide in the moment. Wasn't It was more head based than heart based there, you know? And I knew that I was sort of missing out on something more than just missing out on aspects of me, but there was something bigger there that I maybe kind of could feel a little bit, maybe glimpses, but not at will, not when I chose to do. I was also, really overly reliant on other people for accessing the intuition or, gee, what do you think I should do? Right? Because at this on the early stages, we tend to externalize our validation, right? And the journey is about shifting that from getting it from outside of us to inside of us, right? And there was just an overall lack of flow, being in the moment, balance where the timing is right, synchronicities happen, things just show up before we really even need to ask or put any feelers out there for them. And this is, especially in today's world, it's topsy, it's turvy, it's challenging. There's so much information flying around out there. And it's even more important these days to have connection with our intuition, to dial in on what's true for us, what is best for us in any situation that it might be. Because our emotions, we know, can be misleading, and mine certainly were, right? And our memories aren't always a good guidepost or guardrails either, because they could be clouded with fears, right? And,
Absolutely.
you know, of course, we need our logical minds, but without intuition, we're not getting the full picture. So,
Absolutely.
with my, growth and getting past traumas, etc., the intuitions kind of organically started to come. And it was like, maybe I am worthy. Maybe I can do this. If they can do it, I can do it too. Right.
And Duran, when did you have that conscious realization that what I'm sensing is actually what's going on? I'm absorbing the truth in various ways.
Yeah, that happened at a very early age. But then I shut down because what was in here wasn't matched out there. And I was too
Understand.
sensitive to it, and it was too painful and hurtful, right?
I see.
So I learned to not trust it and not trust me. And oh, there goes another wall up and another one and another one. Then, after all those years of healing, then I recognized, oh, I'm not the only one in this movie, right? Yeah, we take care of our side of the street, but there's other people walking with us too, right? And if they're not willing to look at their own stuff, before I was taking it all on.
But it's very interesting that you not only got through it, but you developed these abilities that folks would find it hard to believe. But now, if you look into some declassified reports of some organizations, I'm not going to name exactly who have actually been studying these sorts of abilities for many years, you'll find that there is a lot of evidence supporting the fact that these abilities do exist, number one. And all of us have access to it. Some have refined them more than others, such as yourself, and they have the internal state of being to support doing it in a responsible way. And tell us some of those abilities that you realized that you had, and how did you end up using them consciously?
Well, there's one, clair, right? Like a clear, clairvoyance, etc. And one is clairsentience or clair feeling. And my external world growing up flew in the face of that. So I would see someone and I would think, I'm not sure if I can trust them or not, right? Or what are their motives or whatever. And then I was talked out of that, right? So I downplaying my clairsentience, what my gut was telling me. So that's part of the, family cultural conditioning that happens that can cloud those visions, right?
I see.
But that's kind of like getting the gut feeling on things,
Right.
just sort of somehow knowing with your whole body. Like if you meet somebody, you kind of light up, right? Oh, this could be a friend of mine. This could maybe be a friend or something like that. So that's something that happens and we are all wired for it. That is one of the strongest, best intuitive skills that one can have. It is something that we all have access to. If you've got a body, then you can access your clairsentience, right? And a lot of people say it's the best one. Let's say, for instance, as compared with clairvoyance. Now, I'm looking at your background and there's beautiful imagery. What if I want to use my clairvoyance and kind of tune into a detail of what's behind you there? I can do that. I can go in and I can come up with descriptors like the color, the shape, what I might guess is a texture or whatever, like go in there. But then it kind of stops. It's like you're describing a photograph, right? On a largely superficial layers. But using clairvoyance, you feel into the detail and you follow a thread almost like to the heart of that detail. And then you get so much information. And from there, you like IndrasNet, you could just follow the thread that goes out in any direction. Oh, well, what was here beforehand? What's the future? What emotion does this bring up in me? What feelings? What thoughts? Like it can just go anywhere.
And I'm curious, initially, did you have any overlap with what your brain may have been creating along with what you were perceiving through your clairvoyance or clairsentience?
Yeah, absolutely. There was noise, there was distortion, there was, remote viewing, the community calls it analytical overlay, right? Where you get a taste of something and then run with it instead of staying with it. You see,
Interesting.
the traumatized Teresa wasn't comfortable in my own skin, my own body. So I couldn't even be really intimate with myself, comfortable with myself like that, let alone anything I might perceive. So the best I could do was just sort of open up, look, and shut right back down again.
Interesting.
So that didn't take me very far. But the more comfortable and calm I got within, the longer I could stay with a certain signal line. And
Wow.
then the chatter fell away. After a while, you do start to detect patterns. Like if it's a chatter or my ego coming in with something, I know what that is like for me.
Interesting. Through your clairvoyance or clairsentience, is this something you feel generally more so in your heart space? Or is this something that, along with your heart space, can be felt in other energy centers of the body?
Absolutely. Our points of perceptions from these can be all over the place, frankly. However, what's really important to know is the heart is key to this. The heart's the portal to all intuitive phenomena. It truly is. I mean, yep, there's the third eye and seeing there, but rather limited. The love, the heart and the love is the grace that flows within and between all things. It's the great connector or equalizer. So that is what allows the intuitive channels to actually be effective, right?
Ah, absolutely.
I think sometimes I have some clients that might be easier to read because they're more heart focused, heart centered. They don't have those walls up there,
I
right?
see.
So it kind of works both
Absolutely.
ways, right?
Yeah, and it's almost like the difference between using your intuition in a productive manner, both for yourself and the collective, versus the lack of being in your heart center, simply using those abilities for whatever sorts of desires that may come up through one's ego or some other sort of motivation, which may not be inspired by the heart center. It almost to me feels like that heart center creates a direction and it creates, that direction towards that ultimate unity and liberation. And then everything else is something that you can use as a tool to move forward in that direction, allow others to also progress alongside you. And I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I totally agree with what you just shared. Oh my gosh. Things like, using talents or abilities to, come up with the lottery numbers or whatever it happens to be, right? That's by and large benefiting yourself only. It's ignoring the collective, it's creating separation consciousness. And when you do that, it can limit the range, the depth, the clarity, the accuracy of things because you're putting conditions on it. And to practice your intuitive skills, yes, you set an intention. Yes, you're thinking about whatever it is that you want answers on, but then you drop it, you let it go, and you let the universe speak to you. You're not trying to cram it. It's kind of like ceremonial magic. They would draw a circle and call in some being and kind of trap it to get to do its bidding, right? Very controlling, very power over, right? So someone that uses this like intuitive abilities, like there's a whole bunch of ethics, for instance, we, get to in a bit here, but yeah, it has to be loving and helpful for ourself and therefore organically for all our relations, right? We don't use it for mispurposes. And I think that people have, and I've always wondered, well, how come it still kind of seems to work for them? Like right, like people misusing it. And it might be because they're true to their unique energy signature. So let's say I have an energy signature of not good, something darker, right? Well, what am I going to attract? Darker guys, darker energies. And they're going to want to keep me there, right? In that energy. So they'll do whatever they can to keep me there. So when I put out, okay, when can I go break into that apartment to steal someone's whateverness, right? They will tell me, right? But it's always at a cost, always at a cost. Where if we do readings with heart, with love, with compassion, with respect, honoring everyone's right for self determination, detaching from how they may use the information, but if we're doing it according to our high level, values, virtues, qualities, and characteristics, that's when we can do no harm. And that keeps calling in those spirits that are well in spirit to support us. And guess what? Even more light comes in. Now, it kind of sounds like I'm a light chaser, but I'm not, right? Because even being, well, this is kind of linked up with consciousness, learning to be okay with polarities, that state of equanimity. This is good. So, of course, we want the good, and the bad we don't necessarily want to deliberately create, but it's being able to show up to whatever is created. Like I showed up and I loved within myself whatever showed up, right?
And I think you touched on a very important point. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I feel like this has been a point of confusion for a lot of folks, especially ones who can pick up on what is unifying us versus what is separating us. In that essentially they are both instruments to take us to the um, ultimate point of knowing and oneness. But I'm curious, how can we see the quote unquote dark as a tool to help us get there? And is there a way that we can essentially bypass the challenges that are associated with that dark and develop ourselves to a point with our own love and motivation, which does not require to interact with those dark forces in order for us to learn and progress.
Right. There's kind of two ways of looking at that. The first way is just, personal growth and development. Say something challenging happened to me, right? That's a portal for discovering more about myself. What can I learn here? What are the pearls in this situation? The sliver in the crescent moon, right? The silver lining. So it's recognizing that darkness or density is just consciousness under pressure, and there's so much validity and light. It is light, it's just got kind of crammed tight, right? And so when we open up that and discover what it is, then on the other side, like the dawn comes, we get ahas, epiphany, we get freedom, we forgive ourselves and others, other people, other beings, other places, other things, right? And just organically, again, the light comes in just on its own. And that's another important part, too. One of your earlier questions is about how do you learn to love what shows up? Forgiveness, self forgiveness, true forgiveness. The other answer to that is say, what if the darkness does have a consciousness of its own, right? Like some being or entity or a person, right? I have learned that the only requirement to be loved is to exist. Like full sentence. That's it. That's it. Now, I've been trained in different types of consciousness, awareness, raising, etc. And one of them is including the 12 light bodies, right? And the first light body, second, third, like this is the third D. These are dimensions in consciousness, okay? And then you go up a few ladders on the rung, for instance, and you realize that on the same plane are the angels and the so called demons, right? It's just a spectrum that exists there. That's all. And then you recognize that they're the same, right? And then you go one more past that and you kind of turn around and look down and of course, it's like the piano has white keys and black keys. Every single note is important. We don't say, I like all the keys in the piano, but I'm not sure about that F sharp or whatever it happens to be. I don't like B flats. Like,
Yeah, beautifully said. And please continue if there was something else you wanted to add to that.
I don't think so, other than whatever we have a response toward, like we get triggered, right? That's on us to figure out why. But not everything that we find unpleasant needs to be healed and worked on. That's part of the toxicity of some of the new age groups. You're flawed, you'll never heal every whatever they say. It's like if I walk down the street and someone blows a puff of cigarette smoke and I walk through it, you know? It's totally fine to not like that, but I don't need to heal anything. I might want to blow my nose or, wash my face or something, but
Right.
I don't have to pathologize everything, right?
Yeah, wonderfully said. And actually leads me to my next question. A lot of folks that are in the spiritual path, they often find themselves at a point where they seek solitude more so than involve themselves with the world outside of their own physical boundaries.
Yeah.
And I feel this might have to do a lot with what you just said because for me personally I also face this situation in which I felt uncomfortable absorbing the energy of others, and in addition to that, because I wasn't skilled enough to manage those energies and to either shield myself from them or to redirect them, I was in that mindset where I felt that the best option is essentially to seclude myself, to be in solitude, which is not such a bad thing once utilized properly. But how can we understand how to best use solitude and when to be involved with the 3D world or society, I guess, if that's what you want to call it?
Yeah, great questions. Shifting sands, of course, on this one here. And what I'm going to say applies to like spiritual awakening or healing, but also just to times when we have a lot of intensity in our lives, right? Now, sometimes we get really busy weeks and we need to decompress afterwards. And then, come Monday morning or whatever, we're back at it. Okay. But when we go through these experiences, like say spiritual ones, I think it's essential. It was for me to withdraw, to be with the energies, let them percolate. I needed to steep in them and feel them and experience. For me, my best tool is journaling,
I
right?
see.
And it's not just pages and words. Sometimes it's arting or whatever I want to do, or doing little arting projects, whatever, just to it's to help me get some clarity and understanding of learning what I learned, you know, fit it into my current mindset. And does my mindset need updating? Fitting it into my current approach to life or to people or certain people. And how does this change my relationship dynamics? I think there's a responsibility to be with the energy so that when we finally do open the door and re enter the world, we're doing so in a good way, in the best way possible, right? For me, I need quiet time. If I go for like a nature walk with my little dog or whatever, it can just spontaneously come, some little bubble, like it did when I walked earlier talking about this, and something came through, and it was like, oh, of course, that's so relevant. But if I was just sitting, doing, and rushing and being distracted, the fullness and the richness of the experiences are lost to me. And then I find I have to go back and maybe re-listen or re-experience or do that meditation again or whatever it happens to be. So it's appropriate to, pull back and just be with the energies. Allow it to weave within our body beings and ask our body, dear body, what do you need to integrate this? What supports you the most? And then just being open and let your body. That's what I do and what I tell my clients. It could be have a nap, go for a run, sit on the beach, go whatever it happens to be for you. Just read a book. Or sometimes the integration period also includes just uncoupling from it, like not pushing, forcing, right? So it takes time for this, right? But enjoy it because those seeds of quantum potential are planted, and we want to do everything we can to bring them to the fullest fruition possible. And when do you know you're ready to go? If you've stayed in the quiet long enough, you'll just sense nudgings or being pulled towards something, or you know what, I'm going to go out and have, coffee with my friend. And maybe that's all you do that day, and again, that's kind of up to each person and everyone just to feel for them, right? It could be treating themselves, it could be, renting somewhere for a month and go getting thee to a cabin in the woods.
Absolutely. And what would you recommend folks who are a part of the daily grind, as some would like to call it, which is really something that has been set forth in the communities that some of us live in? How would they go about addressing this if they can't get away from all the chaos that may be going on around them? What would be your advice to them?
Yeah, the chaos or the responsibilities that we are, blessed and honored to have a job, to have a family, or to be able to volunteer, or, whatever we do. These are wonderful, wonderful things. For me, when I found myself working like full time at a paycheck job, I would carve out little micro moments for myself, right? Even just going to the bathroom and just practicing heart math, connecting with myself, looking at a beautiful piece of artwork on the wall or a sculpture or something, and appreciating it, like really, really appreciating it, allowing that beauty to flood me so I become resonant with the gifts that are all around us all the time. Sometimes it's just, looking at someone and in a totally innocent way, do a little wink or just, deep, deep, draw a little smile face on their back. Like just these little tiny things that add a little levity and buoyancy, a little bit of joy. Right? If you drive home, maybe you could listen to some beautiful music or some kind of inspirational talk or podcast or CD, whatever you want. There's ways that you can do it that you can, bring in. Even practicing a little bit of prayer before you, sip your drink or eat your meal, whatever it is. There's ways that you could weave the sacred into your daily life without needing to, buy a meditation cushion and, get yourself in a room for an hour, this, that, and the other thing, right? It could be some people, it used to be, those round dots for file folders, right? Put a bunch of them around, like maybe, on your watch band or a computer screen frame or somewhere on a desk that you have there. And they could be whatever you want them to be, some kind of check in. So every time you see that dot, check your breathing. Is it shallow? Right?
Right.
Practice techniques. And there's a few little quantum quickies, but just whatever works for the person in the moment so that they can kind of reignite that sense of feeling all is well, calm and ease, connected to the all in the best way possible, right? Simple box breathing, 4 in, pause for 4, 4 out, pause for 4. You can do that while you're typing, at a desk on your computer, you know. Have,
Absolutely.
little inspirational signs or those page a day calendars where you tear it off and there's wonderful sayings by some, brilliant writers, etc., etc., you know
Absolutely.
and offer random acts of kindness to those around you. Coworker, let's go for coffee and, do you mind if I treat you? I just feel like treating you to that. Just kind of dial up the love in the way you can. There's also things that you could kind of leave running in the background, like, nice music, maybe you can play at your desk. And also things like tithing. If you know you're going to tithe, like take maybe 10% of your income, whatever you end up getting, to some organization that you believe in, knowing that what you're doing, it almost makes it more sacred, knowing that, yeah, I'm
Absolutely.
getting paid for doing whatever, and then I'm going to take a little bit of it and donate it to that cause there, whatever it happens to be. And in a way, it doesn't matter. It's just you're giving, sort of. So you're keeping yourself in that dynamic flow of love and connection. And you can have fun with this and play with it, right? There's one guy I know that he's got the most outrageous socks, and he just loves his socks, and they light him up, and people, mention them all the time. Ridiculous socks, like with bacon and eggs or pickles, who knows what, but just little things like that, right? It helps us uncouple from the mind, but in not ways that take us off path. They add to it because sometimes we think to create change or change something means we gotta go in there and change something. Not necessarily. We can create change by adding beauty to what already exists.
Beautifully said. And I think you hit some very important aspects of growth in general that regardless of what's going on outside of your physical boundaries, you can assess yourself, internalize what you are feeling, where you're being nudged towards, as you said, and then from there, make an assessment as to what your needs are at the moment, particularly your internal needs. And once those are addressed, regardless of where you are, as you said, you could be typing and still take in those deep breaths and be in tune with your heart center. And not be affected by any external forces or situations that otherwise may have triggered you. I think once we're in tune with our heart centers, the clarity that we get from not just being in our headspace allows us to make that assessment that much more effectively and really understand, which direction we are being pushed and pulled towards really. So you also mentioned something that I would love to hear your take on. You call them quantum quickies, and I was wondering, in your own words, can you first describe to us what these quantum quickies are,
Yeah, what they
and
are.
then just show us.
Sure. There's a bunch of them. Quantum quickies are just short, effective little things that you could do to instantly shift your energetic and or your perspective and or how you're feeling or what your emotions are in any given moment. I think another word for them might be biohacks or biohacking, but often these are longer, like do these physical movements or press these
Mhm.
pressure points, right? Or the ones I like are really short and quick and sweet, right? And effective, and there's no contraindications. And that's a word from my nursing days. So contraindication is it's not healthy or appropriate for someone to do something, usually involving medications, right? And
Right.
quantum quickies are free. They're easy, they're short, and they're just delightful and how quick they happen to work, right? Shall I maybe suggest a few now?
Please do. I would love to try these out myself as well.
Yeah, and everyone who's listening is welcome to join into this first one. This is created by a lady named Donna Eden of Eden Energy Medicine decades ago. Right? She was really sick with a whole bunch of issues, and she decided, well, the doctors aren't holding much luck or hope for me, so I'm going to heal myself. And she did, right? So, what this one does is, when we're in fight or flight and we don't even feel our feet on the ground and we're just, go, 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 all the cortisol and all those energy depletion hormones are coursing through our body and we're exhausted, right? I remember being taught a good burst of cortisol will deplete our immune systems for 8 hours.
Wow.
And then we wonder why we get sick when we're doing all the right things, right? Well, so this is super easy. So if you have glasses, maybe take them off, right? And all you do is you take a finger and you draw figure eights around your eye orbits, just like that. Just trace figure eights around your eyes and you keep going until you get an urge to yawn.
Wow.
And you will. And you will get an urge to yawn. Now, depending on where your nervous system is predominantly, any moment you start it, right? It could take a minute or two, or it might take 10 minutes. But I guarantee you, you'll do that and you will yawn. Did you? I could see it.
I was getting quite relaxed for sure. That yawn was around the corner.
Yeah, yeah, I could so see it on your face too. Oh my, it's like stress drops away, and what that does is it switches our nervous system from the sympathetic, fight or flight to predominantly parasympathetic, feed and breathe. So it helps the body heal itself, get into a state of beautiful composure.
And I tell you, you feel that sense of relaxation right away. And it's very surprising and amusing just how quickly we can center ourselves if we internally do the right things. And, like you said, this triggers that parasympathetic response,
Yes.
in the most natural sort of ways without ingesting anything or inhaling anything.
That's right. It's free, it's instant. You could do it before important conversations, or if you think there might be something difficult happening, or if you're just sort of feeling like I'm moving way too fast, I'm getting gappy and too much in my head. Young people can do, anyone could do that. So that ideally is shared wide and free. Yes.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Another technique that's really simple, right? And this one impacts our nervous systems, very much similar to the figure eight technique. And it's very associated with the vagus nerve, which is a large nerve in our body, and probably a lot of people have heard about it. But that can be brain stuff, brain candy. But essentially, you're going to be breathing in and out of your nose at whatever pace is good for you. But on the exhale, hum. Hum so your lips vibrate. You feel that? It kind of vibrates.
I do. I
Yeah,
do.
just do that. And that is also very calming.
It's getting into the importance of frequencies and really scalar technology, if you wanna think of it that way. Just, similar to chanting Om, for example,
Yes.
while meditating, almost felt a similar resonance.
Yeah, absolutely. Another technique is doing what's called the thymus thump. So let me just do this here. Just sort of here, like, right above the sternum, there's like a little bit of a bump over where the heart area is. And just very lightly, just do little taps there, little taps. And when you do that, you're going to find yourself, you know, distancing from, worries, concerns from the past or anxiety about the future. It brings you to a state here and now, pretty centered, pretty grounded. And anything we could do to bring us to our present moment, right, tends to be really, really helpful. So again, just in your upper chest here, kind of you feel a little bump and just yeah, just do it gently. Yeah, but it feels nice, doesn't it? Yeah,
It shifts your focus and attention to your heart center.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it works really, really well. Another way, this one they even teach in, job fairs and stuff like that. When you want to increase your confidence, I'm sure you've heard, or most people have heard, of stand in the superhero pose, like standing legs spread wider than the hips, your hands on your hips, and you're like, I'm in the superhero pose, or even arms up, like that, right? And just, yes, I got this. I got this. Oddly enough, it works every
Wow.
time, right?
I have heard that, and I'm curious. Now, does that activate a particular energy center, like for example, our solar plexus, by doing something movement such as that? Curious.
I'm sure it does. I don't know if I can really unpack that. I don't have any insight into that, but let's just see.
Yeah,
Okay, it gets me out of my head and expands me outwards. Like
I,
energetically, I feel like I've just expanded outwards beyond what have been my, little boxy mindset limitation of what
right.
I'm capable of in the moment. So it allows me to entertain new possibilities and new awarenesses. It just opens my energy field up, generally speaking. And it's like, I can do anything. It just like, ooh, it like blows the lid off. Like what roof, what glass ceiling doesn't exist anymore, right? Doesn't exist anymore. Do you know the sway test?
The sway test.
Yeah, the sway. It's like a kinesiology. This takes maybe a couple minutes to describe, but once you know it, you can do it instantly, quickly. So this is good if you have any question that could be answered yes or no. Okay. Can I trust this company? Should I order fish? Should I order the Buddha bowl? Like whatever it happens
Wow.
to be, would it be, good for me to stay home tonight? Or would it best for me to go out? Anything that can be answered yes or no, right? And just play with your imagination for what questions you can ask. So first of all, you calibrate. So we could, we're sitting down totally fine. But generally you would stand, your arms gently relaxed at your side, maybe do thymus thumping or just get present, maybe just a few breaths just to get present. And what you're going to do is turn your body into the pendulum or the dowsing rods. Okay. So being in your body now, either silently or out loud, say something is true. Like I would say, my name is Teresa. Right after that, take note of how your body responds to that statement.
I'm sitting down. Interesting.
And you
Okay.
might feel you tip forward back to this.
I was gonna say I felt like I moved forward slightly.
That's
Yeah.
the most common, but, I don't wanna front load people, right? But that's the most common, right? You also might get a sense of expansion or like you're up sitting a little taller or a little warmth or heat, or something might just feel really pleasant and tickly or calm. It could be anything. So that's your tell for a yes, okay? That's your tell for a yes. Now, this time, be, centered and grounded, arms at your side, whatever. Now, say something you know is incorrect, a lie, a falsehood.
I'm standing up.
And
You're right. I actually immediately felt myself lean back.
yeah.
Wasn't a conscious choice. I just felt myself inexplicably just leaning up against my chair, almost as to remind myself, no, you are sitting in the chair. It just goes to show the power of being in touch with the truth.
Yes, absolutely. First for different people. So don't go by our experience. This
Right.
is you and your personalized experience and what it is. So now you're calibrated. So you can do that really easily, and people around you don't need to see it, right? It's like you're in the grocery store and you're looking at a mound of oranges, right? You know, which orange is the best for me to buy? Because sometimes they're a little different, right? So you can intend on doing this, and I take a pinky and I touch the orange, and then I ask and I find out it's this one.
Interesting.
You can do that. Another technique people use is, sometimes we have supplements that they say take one or two a day, right? Well, how do you know how many to take? You can hold the bottle, the jar, whatever it is, and hold it close to you, maybe your solar plexus. Should I take one a day? And your body will do whatever. Should I take 2 today? And your body can do whatever. Now, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not telling people this is essential for dosage. Again, trust your healthcare practitioner, your naturopath, whatever. But this is just one way to experiment with this technique of tuning into your body. Because again, you've got everything you need, you got all the equipment. It's just learning how to use it in a way that's pretty adjacent to clairsentience or clear feeling.
Right. And it shows us that the entire body is intelligent. It's not just the brain as a lot of folks would believe. Everything contains intelligence and memory. And that's these are some very effective but simple ways to clarify a lot of choices, and I feel really can be used as often as needed for those daily, everyday challenges you may face, which might just require slight recalibration. Very cool, Teresa. This is awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely be applying these.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, these are, quantum quickies are designed for busy people on the go, like heart math, right? You know,
Absolutely,
did we
absolutely.
do the okay fingers last time?
I believe we did, but please mention those again. I mean, these are valuable for those who might not have seen the our first dialogue.
This is another way to get a yes or a no. Okay. So relatively stable, kind of centered, grounded. You do like the okay sign and you interlock the fingers, okay? That's right. And then what you're going to do is say statements and pull your fingers apart or try to. So you got to have like a little bit of resistance there, but you're not like locked or just too loosey goosey, right? So somewhere in the
Sure.
middle, you'll calibrate and get it. And like the other one, let's start with saying something is false. Like I could say, my name is Bob, and then I'll pull my fingers apart, and pretty easily they pull apart.
Right, right. So I'm wearing a black shirt. Okay.
So that's your no, right? And that happens because you're saying something that's not true. It's not in alignment with who you are and your unique energy signature, nor is it aligned with divine will. So you don't get the reinforcement from the universe, so it weakens the muscles. That's the explanation for how this one works. Now, do
Right.
the okay fingers again, and this time, Stu, say something you know is true, and then try to pull your fingers apart.
I'm wearing a white shirt. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Stronger, right? Because the universe
absolutely.
is reinforcing who you are, your unique energy signature, so that gets stronger, right?
Absolutely. And I would say that the more focused you are on both the truth as well as whatever it is that you say while you do this, you can really differentiate between how the two feel. As you mentioned, it's not so much whether or not you can get your fingers out of this lock, but it's the resistance that you feel as you do so, right? As you actually do this. So it's one of those things that again, would require you to really go inside yourself and really getting us, an idea as to what your body is picking up from the universe.
And you know what's so beautiful about this is you learn to trust yourself.
Absolutely.
That's a
Absolutely.
huge step in my healing was to learn to trust myself.
And as well as use your intuitive abilities as in an effective manner, right? It has a lot to do with what you just said, is being accepting of what it is that you are sensing and really seeing it for what it is, and not kind of distorting it with some of your own ideas, narratives, and beliefs.
That's right. Not up here. It's here. It's our embodied
Absolutely.
truth. Can I share one more? Is
Please.
that okay? Now, this
Absolutely.
one's a little different and for a couple of reasons. One, it's very personal. And this was taught to me by one of my esteemed teachers, and she's allowed me to share it with people as long as I mention her, if that's
Absolutely.
okay. Her name is
Please.
Godelieve Willer, and her website is www.godeliver.com.
We'll leave it in the description as well.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to do this. She's
Absolutely.
brilliant. And would you say most people are able to connect with their higher self? Do they know what that is like? Their higher self or their higher mind?
Consciously, no.
Yeah. It's more something you kind of stumble into or get a glimpse or something. Oddly has come up with a way to landmark and get there, and I find it extremely effective. As well,
Wow.
for me and even for others, right? Even for others. So this is a real pleasure because this is a major step toward our healing path, connecting to the oneness, tapping into our intuitive abilities, knowing who we are, shorn of roles, responsibilities, masks, distractions, etc., etc. It allows us to dial into our truths and when we're connected with our higher selves, why not do some Q&A while you're there? We might not do that here, but do you know what I mean? Right? Like,
Absolutely.
wonderful. Okay. So again, it takes a minute or two to describe, but then you can do it quickly on your own afterwards. So it starts with some landmarking in the head region. So first, imagine the top of both ears and imagine there's a line going between them from the top of both ears, going
Entire head.
through your head, like left to right or right to left, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
So just imagine that. Now, please imagine a second line going from your front third eye chakra, right between your eyebrows, to your back third eye chakra, which will be right where your head kind of bumps out, back there. Okay, just right there. So imagine a second line going from front to back or back to front. Again, it doesn't matter. So you have one line going between the top of both ears and one line going between your front and back ajna or third eye chakras. And just imagine, and it might help people to close their eyes now, because from now on it'll just be words describing where those two lines intersect. They're going to intersect somewhere in your head around the region of the pineal and pituitary gland. Okay. So even in the imaginal realm, imagine where those two lines cross, and from there, go back 1 inch and up 2 inches. And you might need to do some little micro navigating, a few millimeters here or there, left, right, front, back, all around. And
Yes.
you will know when you've connected with your higher mind, your higher self, because there's a few like tells. You might get a sense of stillness, quiet, expansion. It's like you're just aware.
And now, how would we stay in touch with this area? Would we focus our attention and energy on that area? How intense should that be?
Yeah, you do that, and you probably also felt it kind of like clicked into place. Something just
Yes.
clicked in. So that's the tell that you know you've got it. Now, Stu, some people might, think, oh, this is great. I know this. Yay. Other people might not be so familiar with it. So if it's something new or unfamiliar, just accept this as a learning opportunity. Embrace a larger part of yourself. So there's nothing to fear here, right? This is a good thing.
Absolutely.
This is an invited good experience, but it might be bring up unusual sensations that are, not often felt, right?
I see.
So the suggestion, like quantum quickies, is just go there when it occurs to you. Go there before you meditate, before you practice your intuitive spiritual gifts, before a healing, before an interview, right? To dial
Right,
into
right,
that level of consciousness, right?
right.
And to do so with grace, with ease, with lightness. We never force spirit. It's like we don't force open our crown chakras, right? We lovingly request our crown chakras to open, for instance. We always treat ourselves with loving kindness, especially to these sacred areas in our body, right?
Absolutely.
So
And how can we balance that, by the way, the sheer action of doing something versus kind of being patient enough to know when to act?
ask your heart, or go into that space there and ask, or do any of the things we suggested. Calm your nervous system so you could really tune into your energies. Ask with the sway test and or the okay fingers, right?
Right,
These are all
right.
helpful for you to know, and they might be take a little while to get some, leverage or momentum with these, but then you're just going to all of a sudden reach a tipping point. Like, when you're eating food and, oh, that's enough. That same thing will happen with these. And then you'll know when it's time to move and, get going, or when it's time to dial back. I'm not sure. Did that answer your question? Or,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it did because oftentimes, you're not. It's not straightforward as far as really concentrating in a particular energy center versus really just sitting back and allowing.
yeah, I agree. And it's, like not forcing or pushing, like learning something new. We're focused, we're concentrated, maybe our brows are furrowed or something like that. But this you just do slowly and easily with flow. Like, like massage, right? You just sort of flow and go with it, right? So
Right,
you kind of
right.
imagine you're massaging yourself energetically. So just do it to what you tolerate as far as your comfort level is. You see, for me, I've acclimated to so much of this over so many years that after a while you kind of train yourself where you're there more often than not, right? So we
Absolutely.
all start
Right.
somewhere. I had no idea I was going to end up being me doing this and sharing some beautiful time with you today. If you would have asked me 5 years ago, like, it would have been like, "What? Are you sure? I don't know." Right? So it's one step at a time, and we need to be patient with ourselves. That's another key word for self-healing is be patient. You're not on a timetable, right? Things will unfold as they do, and the more organically we let them flow, titrating for our optimal health and wellness, the more success we will engender because we'll enjoy the journey. It'll just be one more opportunity for the sweetness of life to come to us as blessings, right? So, hey, does it matter if we don't have perfect dance moves? Isn't it fun dancing? Like, we're here to show up for life and live it and have fun and not micromanage ourselves. I used to micromanage myself quite a lot. It didn't work well for me.
You hit the nail on the head, and I think that's such an important point. More important than honing your skills, your abilities, is enjoying the experience of it all, right? And it's one of the very major reasons that we are here.
And there's another thing, it's not quite a quantum quickie, but it's a book that's come out and I really like it. It's written by a woman named Mel Robbins and it's called Let Them. Have you heard it or seen it?
I have not.
Yeah,
No.
just let them. So if something's not going your way, if you can't control people or other things, and by the way, we can't control people or other things. If something happens that disconcerting or upsets you, instead of following that track of discomfort and creating unhappy chemical cascades in our body, what you can do is let them let them go and do that. I mean, as long as it's not, unsafe for them, of course, we're using reason here, right? And it's a way again of uncoupling from us believing we have control over other people, places, or things, right? It's not letting go of them and what they're doing. In fact, it's taking power back to us. It's like, you know what? I'm just going to choose not to engage with that. It doesn't do me any good. I can never do anything about it anyways. So let them go out without me. Let them get a tattoo, whatever it happens to be. And then all that energy that you would have applied in worrying and blah, 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 you get to retain within yourself and apply it to things that light you up, things that are more important for you. And the second part of it is let me. So therefore, let me use this energy I'm not wasting on worry, and I'm going to create a beautiful art project, or I'm going to put more energy into making preparing a lovely meal, etc., etc. And just saying let them immediate for me immediately takes it back down from any potential to react to something so I can just respond to it instead. I find that very, very helpful.
Wonderfully said. Absolutely. And there's so much power to allowing things to take place as opposed to forcing them, as you said. And it allows for even more growth, whether you're aware of it or not at the time. And I think we're more productive both for ourselves and for the collective once we're in a pleasant state and steady internally. Thank you so much for the insight. And I could continue to talk to you about all of this for hours, but um for the sake of segmenting our dialogues in a way in which we can kind of expand on things in the future, would love to just sign off with you letting us know what it is you're currently working on and how we can find more information about your services.
Delightful, absolutely. And I'm taking that as an invitation to come back another time and have another dialogue with you.
I would hope so. I'm looking forward to it.
Yay! Oh, I would love that
Already.
too. Well, I live in beautiful Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. It's a lovely city, and I do online personal services of many different types of services. Stu, I got my first tarot deck 49 years ago now. So we learn a thing or two over the decades and evolve and grow. So I don't need the cards anymore. I don't use them anymore. So what I do is I bring all of my intuitive skills, including the Akashic record, aura reading, mediumship, communications with nature, spirits, etc., etc., etc. And I meet people where they are, and that's how the sessions are very personalized. They flow organically, right? And so I just have all of that at the ready. and whatever comes through,
Wonderful.
maybe energy healing, if and when appropriate, meaning they've teased out the lessons, they know the divine intention behind whatever happens. Because another pithy saying, but it's true, life happens for us, not to us, right? And then they've got the lessons, right? That well, they've accepted it, and then they've got the lessons, and then they can start the forgiveness. Usually, first and foremost, for themselves and for others. And then we can do the energy clearing. It's like doing the healing, like the spring cleaning, and everything's in the trash bags or the boxes for the Goodwill, but we haven't taken it to the curb yet. So this is taking things to the curb, right? Because if those other steps aren't in place, what I call karmically appropriate, then they're just going to come back. And I'm not interested in band aid cures or short term cures. I want it to be deep, thorough, and like permanent, right?
That's wonderful. So real transformation and
Yeah.
breaking cycles. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
pattern interrupt, brain interrupt, like, all that kind of thing. So they can find me on my website, www.teresaclan.com, Facebook, Teresa Clan, Instagram, Happy Dolphin. And the
I see.
O is actually a zero, not a letter O. So it's a tall, squishy one, not the round one, right? Happy Dolphin. And I've even dusted off a TikTok account where I do weekly card pulls now by video. So I wrote a bunch of tarotists or people that create tarot decks and oracle card decks requesting permission to use their materials to do readings online. So I would hold up three cards and you pick card number one and or two and or three, and then I put them down and I pick up the book and I read. And so people get a reading to inspire them for the week, right? And it's
Wow. Yeah.
really important to get permission again to stay in divine order and truth. So all the goodness and the blessings keep coming. And that in turn, I repurpose and share in my path of service with everybody. And I'm also do in-person services at a local like metaphysical shop here. It's called Inwards Market. I do that a couple of days a week. So it's so nice being in person with somebody.
Right.
So
Great point. Absolutely.
what's nice is we can get a hug afterwards, right? Everybody gets a little altar candle, those little candles, and they hold it and they put their prayers into the candle at the start of the session and we light it and then it burns. And at the end of the session, they get to take it with them. So they could light it again and maybe reignite the experience or whatever candle magic they choose to do.
Wonderful. I think that folks should take this opportunity with all the experience that you've acquired, along with your abilities and insight, and take advantage of it. And so I'll leave all the links in the description. And it's always a pleasure to have you on. You always show your conscious intent to share your wisdom and abilities for collective progress. And I'd like to thank you again from the bottom of my heart for all that you do and all that you choose to be, because it is a choice after all, right? As to what we do and how we share our abilities. So I wish you tremendous success, health, and happiness in your journey. And as I mentioned, I would absolutely love to have you on again for another dialogue. I think it would be wonderful. And it's been an absolute pleasure, Teresa. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, Stu, thank you too so much. And may you and all the watchers, listeners, may your feet find soft pathways.